Today we're going to replace the front coil springs on this two-wheel drive OBS FORD. Things you're going to need are the coil springs, as well as a set of sockets including a 13, 19, 22, and a 29mm socket. You're also going to need the corresponding ratchet wrench to go with this, as well as 2 or more extensions extending to an equivalent between 10 and 12 inches, a 19mm open-end wrench. A hammer and a pry bar are actually optional in this case. They do make the job a lot easier. And of course you're going to need your jack and jack stands. Using the factory jack is actually optional. You'll see why it makes the job a lot easier later on in the video. So before you jack up your vehicle, I don't show it here, but you want to go ahead and crack your lug nuts loose. That's where your 22mm socket will come in. So go ahead and pop those loose and lift your truck up from the control arm. Once you get high enough to stack jack stands on, you want to place them along the frame rail. I'll show you a different angle here in a second. But basically you want it so that once you lower the jack without the wheel, the arm will be able to articulate fully downward and not bottom out. And once that's done, you want to remove the wheel. Good trick to getting stuck wheels off is to just kick them, just like I show right here. And it does help to use your heels to press up on the wheel while taking it off, especially if you're a smaller frame or maybe you're not as strong. Don't try and use your back because you'll throw it out. So at this point you want to go ahead and lower your suspension setup and verify that the jack stands are holding 100% of the weight. The first bolt you're going to remove is this 19mm right here. It's packed with another 19, so you're going to put the open-end wrench behind the shock, and on the other side you're going to use your socket to go ahead and take that out. Once that's done, you're going to need your 13mm socket. At the top of the spring, you should have a little spring clamp. You just want to go ahead and take that completely out. And once that's all done, now we move on to the sway bar end link. You'll need your 19mm socket again, as well as your wrench on the back end. And you're going to go ahead and disconnect the end link from the top mounting point, not the bottom. I did the bottom on the other side. It is a bit more difficult to get back on. With a little bit of persuasion, this thing should come out pretty easy. And at this point, you want to go ahead and kick your brake rotors down, and that should pop the spring right out of the seat. If not, you could grab and force it. At this point, you'll need your 29mm socket as well as your Christmas tree of extensions to get into this spring seat retainer nut and washer. It does take quite a few turns. This thing is torqued to 100 pounds, 100 foot-pounds that is, but it's just ridiculous to take out. So after about 5 to 10 minutes, you want to go inside and pop this little metal disc out first. Otherwise you're going to be swinging this spring around trying to get it off the post. Installation is going to start by cleaning the area. I would recommend new spring seats, but I didn't get them. So you're going to start out by placing the new spring over the spring seat, putting your washer and retaining nut on, and at this point what you want to look out for is that flat part of the spring. You want that to be parallel with the flat part on the spring seat. This thing down and you torque it, you want to make sure it's almost straight up and down. So same thing, you're going to be at it for a while, but once it's all torqued down, you should be able to just step down on your rotor and just push it in. It was a little bit too quick to zoom over there, but that was the floor jack that came out of your factory OBS, and we're actually placing that in between your engine bucket mount, let's just call it an engine mount, and your I-beam. And what this is going to do is, when you actually crank this jack around, is it's going to push that I-beam downward. Hello. It's going to push the I-beam downward enough to where you could push the spring in, as I show here. If you're human, you could probably do it with your hand, but I use my foot. So once we get to this point, you could go ahead and start lowering the jack, and that will bring the top of the spring closer to the spring seat to the point where you could secure your anchor. And if we zoom in here, you'll be able to see how this thing clips on. So you just want to make sure that those two tongues on either side slide right in before you bolt this thing up. If you did it right, the hole should line up perfectly with little to no effort. When it comes to the sway bar, this is where it helps to have a pry bar, but if not, just use your wrench. 19 millimeters on both sides. Once that's done, you want to go ahead and secure your shock absorber. Again, it's a lot easier with a pry bar, but it can be done without it. Alright, after this you should be good to go to put your wheel back on. When you place your wheel back on, again, same thing. If you're a smaller frame, you want to use the heels of your feet while squatting down on your ass. And you want to go ahead and torque your lug nuts down. And that's it.